Welcome to episode 47 of the Grindhouse Podcast. I'm your host, Edwin Cabrera, aka Steady Eddie. Across the screen from me is my homie, my day one, Chris Martin, aka Critta. What up, bro?
What's going on? Just real quick, as always, before we get into the podcast, um, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It really helps us out. Tell your friends about us. Also, you can visit our store to get merch. It's super easy to get to. It's grindhouse.store. All right,
So
let's
we
get into
got a
the podcast.
sidebars episode for you guys today. We got some topics that's been in the news, along with some new releases from our favorite Massachusetts rappers. So yeah, let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Do you want to talk records first? What do you want to?
I think we should talk records first. Let's get into it.
Yeah.
There's two that we really want to talk about. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
we should get right into it.
All right, let's talk about Joyner Lucas. It's a
All
new
right.
record, Evolution.
So Evolution. I take it you listened to it.
I did, yeah.
I listened to it. So I don't know if you guys remembered my last assessment of Joyner's album before this one. I forgot what that last album was called.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't think of it.
his quote unquote debut album, or his major. I guess you can call it like a major label debut album, not like his actual debut album because he's put up more work than that.
Yeah.
Let me just pull it up right now. So his last record was called ADHD.
Yep.
I didn't like it. I liked that Will Smith song off of it. I liked Devil's Work. There were a few songs that I did like, but overall, as a project, I wasn't really feeling it. And I think that's what I said.
Well, yeah, I think we talked about it before, but it was just like a mainstream hip hop record. That's what it was.
It definitely seemed more of like the on the radio wave kind of like hip hop than
Yeah.
what I typically like. And so I don't know. I wasn't really feeling it. I did say that the previous album before that, 508, 507, 2209, I really loved that record. Like I absolutely, that was for me like that's a Joyner album right there, for me.
Yeah.
But I guess he's that was probably an independent release, and it wasn't like a major label thing, so he's not counting out as his debut album.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, he definitely on the new record, Evolution. He definitely it doesn't have that like mainstream feel.
Yep,
Like,
that's what I was gonna get to. So Evolution,
um,
which is his newest album. I think it's like now we're back on that Joyner. Like now I feel like this is Joyner again. This is not Joyner trying to get on the radio or
yeah,
Joyner trying to like, just trying to get more fans or listenership or I don't know, trying to get TikTokers to dance to his music or whatever, what the plan
yeah.
was with the ADHD. But Evolution is a much better album and definitely much more Joyner like than ADHD was, in my opinion.
What song was like the song that stood out to you?
I like the song he did with the game, "On This Way," I think it's called.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good
Um,
song.
I like that song. I liked Zimzima. I like that
Yeah,
song as
I like
well.
that too. It felt very Kanye esque,
Yeah.
um, in not in a bad way. Yeah, I that song came on. I was like, it. Actually, I was like, yo, is Kanye on this record? Like just like real quick. I was just
Yeah.
like, and I like checked my phone or whatever. I was like, oh, okay. Like he just kind of like changed up his style or his like
And
flow or whatever.
yeah. There doesn't seem to be a song I think on this album that I really hated that I can point to and be like, "Oh, this song was trash." Because I listened to it the whole thing through yesterday, and I liked all the songs except for the skits. That was my one like non like I wasn't really feeling the skits. I just thought it was weird because the skits themselves were about like I guess young Joyner, in school. And I think he's brought that because his ADHD was similar in that sense. I think because it was a kid and the kid had ADHD, whatever. This
Yeah,
this one, I guess he's bringing back that. I guess that same thing that he did in the last album to try to keep it consistent. I wasn't really feeling it because I like the album itself, like it's called Evolution. I don't know if the skits revolving school and like I don't know. I wasn't really feeling the skits. I didn't really know how that tied into the overall arc. I mean, I've only listened to it once, so maybe like once I listen to it maybe a couple more times, I'll get what the connections are. I could have done without the kid voices doing get in trouble in school and whatever. I wasn't really feeling it. I don't know how you feel
Yeah.
about that.
I honestly I don't even remember the skits all that much. Um, so yeah, I would say that yeah, I could have done
there
without them.
there was like a skit where like he's or a kid, the kid in the skit, I don't know if it's Joyner or Joyner's son or whatever. He's like the teacher's going around, she's having all the kids work on like Father's Day cards or something like that. And then like, baby kid Joyner is like doesn't want to work on his probably because his dad wasn't around. And it was like kind of sad, but like it wasn't really because I get what he was trying to do with it, and I definitely like obviously as an educator like I fuck with that like what he was trying to do with that. I just on this album it just didn't feel. I don't know, it didn't feel. I thought it was not to say that it was like corny, but it just wasn't like the kid's voice. And I don't know. I hate to say I hate to bash that like the skits like this badly, but I don't know if the kid was his son or if it was just another kid's voice. I didn't really like it just sounded too like fresh-faced kid for me. It didn't sound like some kid who was going through like some deeper emotional thing. It just sounded like a fresh-faced kid, like kind of going through something. I just didn't relate to it, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to like figure out what I'm trying to say. Realistically, like I guess the acting in the skits I didn't love is what I'm trying to get at. Like it just sounded like some like pipsqueak, kid who's like having some issues, but like it just didn't. I didn't really vibe with it. I don't know. It definitely wasn't the kid version of like Only Built for Cuban Links or something like that. Like where the skits are amazing. It felt like some child actor. And then some teacher being like, "Hey, Joyner, you're not paying attention." I don't know. I could do without it.
So that wraps up our Edwin bullies children segment of the podcast.
I don't know. I did when I find myself wanting to skip through the skit, like it's and like I hear this argument with people all the time. Like people hate skits on albums. They like hate skits. I like skits if it's done right. I just think most skits are not done right. And I think especially if the skits are like, you know, we're touching on like being minutes long, like we're like getting into this full story, about like this whole album has like this concept where like the kid is growing, he's evolving. I want to be enthralled in the story.
Yeah.
It's like I'll think of like some skits that I really like. I talk about Only Built for Cuban Links. I love this the skits on that album. Good Kid, Mad City. Love the skits on that album. Like some skits are just like they work. Like they tie the album together. I don't think that the skits on this album really tied anything together. I felt like I was trying to find where the connection was. You know what I'm saying? So I guess I'm coming out like
I don't know.
aspiring, but like
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think they're like obviously skits aren't really that popular now. Like a lot of people
Yeah.
don't do them. I feel like when we were like growing up, it was like every record had skits on them. But yeah, overall pretty good record. Yeah, I'm glad he's back to his old ways.
Yeah, the last thing I'll say about it is like I understand Joyner's a storyteller and he's a great one at that. So I understand
Oh,
like
for
him
sure.
incorporating skits into his album,
Yeah.
and I don't want to just take away from the fact that like I really hated the skits and that's the one thing to drop from this album. The album itself is great. The
Yeah.
music is awesome. Like I recommend listening to this album. It is good. Like the album is definitely good. Not taking anything away from that. The only thing that I can poke holes at, and that I guess I'm really highlighting the things I'm poking holes at, is the fact that the skits just didn't do it for me. But overall, the body of work, the music is great.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely agree. Cool. Let's move on to Millie's Blanco 3.
Blanco 3.
It's it's good. It's real good. Um yeah, man, I feel like he's about to pop.
He's
Like big
ascending into
time.
yeah, he's ascending into Joyner territory.
Yeah.
You know, like I think it's really cool that we have two guys in Joyner and Millies who are like really kind of like hitting the mainstream.
Mm.
I mean, Joyner's already there, but like Millies is well on his way to being there. I just think it's really cool that we get two, you know, Massachusetts rappers repping their area pretty hard, and you know, they're both being recognized right now by the hip hop, you know, mainstream hip hop industry. You know, like you know, these people like I saw Millie's like doing a bunch of shit with Jadakiss, and
Yeah,
apparently
man.
like I don't know if like I read this somewhere. I'm not sure if this is the case, but apparently Millie's is Jadakiss's signee. I didn't know that before.
Yeah, so like I yeah, I think it's been like a while. Like they've had some sort of working relationship for a while, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at.
But
I think Jadakiss goes back to like 2013 with Millie's,
yeah.
like the first Blanco project and stuff like that. So I didn't know that those two were very closely connected until like
Yeah.
recently. Like I'll be honest, I'm not one of these people that like uh I would say that I'm probably a newcomer to the Millie's train. You know, it wasn't like he was like one of these rappers that I knew about early on that I was always like, you know, riding. You know, I guess I missed the boat on Millie's, but I'm like coming back around and you know familiarizing myself more with his work. And Blanco
Dude,
3, amazing. Like there
yeah.
wasn't one song on the album that I didn't like. I really like the song. My favorite song on the project is probably Real Life Shit, RLS.
Yeah.
That's my favorite song. I like the songs that he has with Sosa Greek. Those songs really hit.
Yeah.
But I would say
Yeah.
Real Life Shit is probably my favorite on the album.
I liked Heightened Senses. Jim Jones is on that. Um dude, the fact that he has like who he has on his features is very telling on like
Yeah,
where his like trajectory as an artist right now, because obviously Jim Jones, Sosa Geek, like these are big artists that are, you know, like are massive. So for them to be on Millie's record is fucking dope. So um yeah, man. Honestly, really good record. I actually I don't know if there's any song I didn't like.
that's what I'm saying. It was and it was packed too. It's like an hour long. I think there's 22 songs,
Yeah.
and every song was good. Was pretty great. Like the songs range from good to great, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There was no like mediocre song. Like he brought it on this project, and this is something that I'm gonna have to like go back and listen to a lot more Millie's records before. But like, man, the guy he can rap his ass off. I was actually
Yeah.
like familiarizing myself with just who he is more because like you know I wanted to find out more about you know his background growing up in Cambridge and stuff like that. And when he really started to pop, I find it interesting because he's an example of somebody because Millie's is older. He's like I think right now he's like 34ish. He's in that range 33, 34, maybe 35. Probably around 34. And I was just reading some old articles from like 10 plus years ago about like Millie's back before he was like, you know, who he is now. This is like him just trying to get known. And I remember reading some article, like I think his backstory is pretty well known. You know, he's from Cambridge. He like, you know, he talks a lot about like being in like special education classes. And like, you know, he was like put in these classes where because he was like a troublemaker and like, you know, people just assumed you know, he wasn't going to make anything of himself. They like kind of threw him and like five other of the worst kids in school into one special education class. And, you know, that's pretty much where they held them to like essentially take care of them until they graduated and then just like release them into the world. And,
Yeah.
you know, that's kind of his backstory. Like he just like was kind of like a knucklehead who teachers just assumed he was just going to grow up to be nothing. And, you know, he end up like you know, the thing that I think Millie's has that's proof in the pudding when you look at his just body of work and like his longevity in the game and you know being 34 years old and now like getting to that level where you're hitting mainstream you know prominence and recognition you know that doesn't like people think it's like you know you pop like that instantly like you know 4 or 5 years I do this I pop Millie's has been grinding for over a decade and he's now reaching that level of being recognized same thing with Joyner has been doing it for like a long time, and he's another one that's like I think he's probably like early 30s. He's probably like maybe a couple years younger than Millie's, but he's another one who's like in his 30s, and he's like just gotten to that level of recognition when people are in, you know, in mainstream,
it's kind of
music
like,
or, you know,
it's kind of like Benny the Butcher. Like
another one. Yeah.
I think he's like 35 or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know, he just popped within the last couple of years, and just grinding away at this music thing.
They used to say that, you know, hip hop was like a young man's game, and I feel like a lot of people really got caught up with like that line of thinking, like, oh yeah, like if you're hitting 30s, like you're an old sport in hip hop. I feel like that is changing now, and I feel like people like Jay-Z, you know, who's still rapping at a very high level and still putting out like great bodies of work, and people are still flocking towards, kind of like people like that, kind of like, you know, like destroyed that like line of thinking where like if you hit a certain age limit, like you're essentially washed. And I feel like now, especially with all these like newcomers who are not really newcomers, they've been here around here for a long time, but are getting that recognition. I feel like they're only adding to that. You don't, you know, you don't have to be 18 to make it in hip hop anymore. You don't have to be a young guy or in your 20s to make it in hip hop anymore. You can still keep grinding, you know, hit your mid 30s and find success, you know, and people will gravitate towards you. You know, Griselda being a great example of that with Benny the Butcher, and Conway. You know, like I said, Millie's is a great example of that. Joyner is a great example of that. I'll even put SD as an example of that, because, you know, he's been popping underground, but lately he seems to be getting more of a mainstream recognition. So I'll even put him in that boat as well. But like, you know, I like that trend that we're stopping just like the you know, this is what hip hop is, and now we're like kind of expanding it to being more accepting of whatever is like knocking, you know. Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter what you look like in some instances, you know, and it just really matters about like how good is your music. So shout out to Millie's, man, because, you know, he's been grinding for a very, very, very long time, and you know, to finally make it and be recognized and getting all these cosigns from like big name artists, I think is really cool.
And I feel like his team, like whoever's on his team, and they're doing like an awesome job. Like, you know, you see him on billboards. He's all over the place. So,
he's all over the place. He was in Atlanta shooting, you know, videos of like his billboard in Atlanta, which is, I think, is awesome, because it's like Atlanta is the place where like most talent is bred, you know. And so like the fact that Millie's has his own billboard in Atlanta advertising his music, I think is huge. Especially for a Boston guy. You know, I feel like Boston rappers, they don't get a lot of love, you know, because people don't think of Boston as like a place where like, you know, necessarily brings out like the next big hip hop artist. But I think that, like I said, like things are changing. I feel like Boston is becoming that hub. I feel like Boston is becoming that next place to look up for when it comes to your next generation of hip hop artists. We got Millie's and we got Joyner to showcase that, and a lot more coming. So, you know, all the more reason why we're doing this goddamn podcast, you know, and trying to get people hip to what the fuck's happening out here.
Exactly.
Shit's lit.
Shit is dope. All right.
Last thing, one more thing before we move on to the topic on Millie's. One last thing, and this is like another inspirational thing for artists out there who are out there grinding. Like the article I was reading, I read a few different Millie's articles, but the article I was reading, he was just talking about the hustle, like his hustle factor. You know, the fact that he'd be like stuck in traffic in his car and would hop out and like pass out CDs of his music to people. This was like him in 09. You know, the fact that he's trying to get on with like DJ Chubby Chub on Launchpad, you know, trying to get his music out there, touring from New York all over New England, trying to get people to hear who he is, and then eventually touring nationally. I feel like, you know, if you want to follow blueprint for what hard work can you do for you, take Millie's as examples. He's been hustling for well over 10 years, you know, putting in that groundwork, not just like putting his shit online and hoping that it catches. Like he was putting in that groundwork, getting his music spread, performing in front of people, trying to put himself in places where people can see and hear his music. And, you know, and it took him a while to finally get to that level of success, but like, you know, once you get there, shit moves quick. And I feel like that's what's happening with Millie's right now. It took him a long time to get here, but now that he's here, it seems like he's really ascending.
Yeah. Cool. So where do we want to go from here?
You want to stay on the reviews?
Yeah, let's do that.
So I watched. I don't know if you had time to watch. I watched the HBO Max film Charm City Kings. Um,
Yes, I did watch it.
with a notable appearance as a supporting actor from our boy Meek Mill.
Yeah.
And I wanted to first get your take on, like, first of all, what you think. What do you think of the movie as a movie, and also what did you think of Meek Mill's acting performance?
Um. So it's funny, the movie when it first started, I'm like, I didn't know if the movie was gonna be for me because I thought it was gonna be like a teenage love story thing, and I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like this movie. And I ended up actually really liking the movie once it started to get into it, and like obviously, can we spoil things? Is that cool? Okay. Uh, so like the ending, I thought the ending was really good. Like with the store, like
Oh wait, don't. Okay, if it's the
yeah,
ending, yeah, I might want to
yeah,
save a
yeah,
little something for the
yeah, yeah,
audience.
yeah. But yeah, it was. I ended up liking the movie, but it took a little bit for me to like get into it.
I thought the kid was a goddamn knucklehead. I mean, I guess that's the whole point of the movie. But there were
I
some
think
points
that's
where I'm just like, this
the
kid's a
point of it.
goddamn knucklehead. Holy
Yeah,
shit.
yeah,
Listen to somebody that's older than you for once. You know,
yeah.
like the
Right.
whole pretty much. And let me explain you the premise of the whole movie. I'm talking to the audience. So the movie's about this kid who, so in Charm City is Baltimore. I guess that's another name for Baltimore. And so the movie is set in Baltimore, and there's this kid who his brother used to ride dirt bikes, and his brother ended up dying, in some sort of accident, connected to this like world of like dirt biking and hustling and whatnot. And so the kid, whose brother he looked up to, wants to do that same thing, and so he like the movie starts up with him like trying to buy like a dirt bike that's been stolen. I thought the beginning of the movie I thought was great. Like it goes from the kid about to buy the bike being excited to like him like getting pulled over by the police. So I thought like the beginning of the movie was great. I really liked the movie. Um, I just found myself like disliking, like typically in a movie you don't want to like not like the main character, like typically like you want to connect and relate to the
Yeah.
main character.
You want to root for
Um,
them.
I After a while, I started to find the main character kind of annoying, because he never seemed to really listen. He was always such a hard-headed kid, and I feel like that's an obvious point that the movie's trying to make. Like this kid is like one of
Yeah.
these hard-headed kids, like he's gonna learn the hard way. So I completely understood it, especially with the ending, how it happens. Like I understood why they went that direction, but I definitely found myself being like, bro, like God, could you think for 1 second other than like, what you think is the best, for what what you're going through. Like there was so
Yeah.
many like obvious things that I feel like he could have avoided, had he just listened to one person. He
Yeah.
had so many, because like in the movie, like I feel like in real life, some people are lucky enough to have mentors. Most people, that's usually their parents. Some people, that's not their parents, but that's somebody in school, like a teacher. This kid had like three different mentors. He had
Yeah.
Meek Mill, who was like a retired, like his Meek Mill in the movie, his name is Blacks. He was like on parole, so he's like trying to stay out of trouble. He's working at like a mechanic shop. Then he had the police officer who's just trying to like watch out for him. And then his mom, she had her faults, but she was also like taking care of him and being a relatively good mom.
Yeah.
And this kid is just like going literally just doing the opposite of what everybody wants him to do. Is
Yeah.
like, bro,
Exactly.
like you have a support system. Like there's definitely a support system in your life that I see
Yeah.
in this film. And the fact that you can be that knuckleheaded, like after a while I was like, okay, what the fuck are you gonna fuck up now? you know?
Yeah.
But overall, I really like the movie. I think like everything I just said, it makes sense in the movie because once you see the ending, you'll know why.
Did you like what did you think of Meek Mill's acting?
Uh, I liked it. I think it was like I think he really. I don't know when they made that movie, like in terms of like when he was released from prison, and how later they made this movie after that fact. But I feel like he got just his time in prison. I think allowed Meek Mill to like really grow as a person, and I feel
Yeah.
like he brought a lot of that growth to this character in the film. And I thought he did a really good job of acting in this film. I think that's probably the reason
Yeah.
why.
For someone that's never acted,
Yeah.
he did a really good job. So
Yeah, yeah.
um
He did a really good job of being that like older male figure that like really messed up in early in his life, was trying to clean that up. And I feel like That's why the movie's so good, is because you get that knucklehead, but then you get the guy that was in that same position and is trying to teach this kid, otherwise, for better, successful, not successful. I don't think Meek Mill really kind of, I don't think Meek Mill really like taught the kid any serious lessons until like the end of the movie, but like, it definitely, I think he really did a good job of playing that like somebody who's seen and knows a lot about what's like the world, and is trying to like give this kid solid advice, and the kid not listening, which happens. But I think he did a really solid job playing that like that OG character.
Definitely. Who wrote the movie? Directed it?
I wish I could tell you, but I wasn't keeping track of that. Well, I do. It's Angel Manuel Soto directed the movie. I think his name is. In terms of who wrote it, I didn't really read the credits to see who wrote it, but I know Angel Manuel Soto is the guy who directed the movie. I'm not really familiar with his past work, but I think he did an excellent job with that movie. Like me disliking the main character, I think it's supposed to be a part of the movie.
So it was definitely written to be that way, I think. Yeah. But yeah, people should definitely check out that movie. It's on HBO Max.
Yeah, Charm City Kings. It's good. It's long. It's like 2 hours and it's about like 2 hours and 3 minutes or something like that. Maybe even more.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a long movie.
Yeah. Cool. All right, let's move on to Kanye West being on Joe Rogan.
What positive do you have to say about the interview? Let's start there.
So I've only seen clips, so
okay. That's good.
I can't be a good judge on like overall like
I can't either. I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing either, so we're in the same boat.
Yeah, I mean it, and I'm not sure if I'll watch the whole thing, honestly, but
I don't know if I can sit through it. To be honest with you. I tried, and it was like I was doing way too many mental gymnastics to try to understand what like Kanye West's points were. So like I ended up like bailing out just because like my brain was started hurting after a while.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw a few clips. One of the clips was like him talking about like sort of how his brain works and like how he like thinks about things, and that it's like a symphony, and it's not. That's why people think he like has like weird ideas and shit, and like I don't know. It's trying to unpack everything that he said was just like, okay, like,
well, he kept making these analogies that like were really hard to follow. Like it would be like, for example, he trying to think of like one of the analogies he said. I forgot what he was talking about, but he mentioned the fact that I'm forgetting it now, but there was just some like really bad analogies that he was not. I just couldn't pick them up, where he was making analogies about like the way he thinks, and like it would kind of go somewhere where you would kind of see where he was getting at, but he would never get to the point of really making it clear. So he would start an analogy, he would say like, my brain is like this or whatever, and then he would like talk about the analogy, and like you were like, okay, I'm following, and then at some point I would be like, okay, I feel like there was a word that I missed out on that like is making this all confusing for me. That's how I felt throughout the whole interview. Like he would get to a place where he can kind of talk about it, but he would never quite like fully bring it around, And I feel like that's the problem with me. Like when I listen to Kanye speak about anything, that's usually the problem with me. Is I don't like the way he articulates like his thought process isn't good enough for me to relate to or understand. And so I feel like with this interview, I mean, maybe it'll be different once I sit down for the full 3 hours of it. But with this interview, it was much more the same thing, where like I would try to, because I'm curious. I want to know how and why Kanye thinks the way he does. It's just for me, he isn't able to articulate it in the best way, and so I still find myself to be confused by the things he says or does, because I just even when he explains why he's doing it, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
He's not being like very direct about like what, like why.
I maybe he just doesn't know why either, and the things that he explains is the only thing he understands. But like, just for me, I really couldn't get into it because I was lost. I got lost, and then trying to figure it out with my brain just hurt, So I was like, all right, I'm done with this. maybe I'll go back and watch more of it. But you know, I guess on the positives, like he wasn't like unhinged Kanye. He was like very he seemed comfortable in his atmosphere
Yeah.
with Joe. He seemed calm, cool, and collected. You know, and I thought, okay, Kanye seems like he's in the right state of mind. Maybe I'll be able to get what he's trying to like, you know, how his brain works now, because it doesn't seem like he's just like, you know, going crazy and, you know, going over the edge. It seems like he's like very, you know, in his element. But
Yeah.
I still was confused. I guess I didn't get much from the interview.
Yeah, I like I said, I've only seen clips. And yeah, I don't know. And it's weird because it's it's like him campaigning for presidency. So it's just like it's just weird. I don't know.
Even like wait, speaking about the presidency, even like the whole like, you know, and I think Joe did a pretty good job of asking the questions that like, you know, he should have been asked. But even like with the presidency thing, when Joe asked him about that, and Kanye was like, he feels like he was put on this earth to like help people, you know, and then started talking about that, and then
That
made
was one of the clips I saw. Yeah.
yeah, and like I don't know, that's great, but like that's like kind of like what, like I don't know, everybody kind of has that same line when they get into politics. Like I was put on this earth to do,
Yeah,
you know.
it's
It's like
yeah.
okay, like I get it, but like that's kind of like that's nothing I haven't heard before, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So we'll see. I'll try to watch the whole thing. Try to get through it.
good luck.
Yeah. Cool. So what do we want to talk about website stuff for
Oh,
Grindhouse?
this is okay, perfect. Yeah. So we got an announcement to make. So we've discussed the Grindhouse store, grindhouse.store, to buy all your Grindhouse merch needs.
Yeah.
But we have a couple announcements regarding the website.
Yeah.
Um, since you have the cleaner mic, you want to start with your merch announcement?
Sure. So obviously we do merch. So we want to sort of extend our store to, you know, if artists want to host um merch on our store, we definitely want to expand into that. So yeah, if you're an artist and you're looking to sell merch online and you don't have the time to do it, or um just unable to do it, hit us up. We can host your merch.
Yeah. So this is how it's gonna work. So like take a look at our grindhouse.store website, and you'll see that there's on the top there's like a few different bars. I'm gonna pull it up right now just so I can explain it
Yeah.
more clearly with it in front of me. So there's like a few different tabs that you can select: home, media, shop, stores, about, and contact. So there's for the stores section, I believe, right? Am I correct? In
Yeah.
the store section, underneath that section,
Yeah.
there's a Grindhouse store, which for people who are looking for Grindhouse merch, they can select that section. But because it's a drop down, because it'll just be more than just the Grindhouse store. So the Grindhouse store is just one store. If there's somebody out there that's interested in getting their merch hosted through our website, that specific artist or company will have another their company in that drop down. So as opposed to it being under the Grindhouse tab, it'll be, if you go to stores and hit the drop down, there'll be Grindhouse, and there'll be the company that wants to host their merch, or the artist that wants to host their merch on our site. So they'll have
Yeah.
their own little drop down that people can select. So if you're somebody who doesn't have like a website, who doesn't have time to create a website, but still wants their merch to be out there on the internet for people to purchase, and you want us to host your merch for you, we can absolutely do that. Go ahead and hit us up. You can email, I would email Chris at grindhouserecordings.com, because he takes care of the website stuff.
Yeah.
And just let him know that you're interested in having your merch hosted in our store.
Or even DM us on Instagram. And
Yeah, shoot us a DM. We'll respond. We always respond. for the
Cool.
most part.
We try to at least.
Yeah, we always try to respond to people for sure. But yeah, so if you're interested, definitely check that out. Check out our store, grindhouse.store. And if you feel like you want your stuff hosted on there, more the merrier. Send us a message.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Hip Hop Tribune or
Yes.
section on the website that people can check out now? It's up there now, but
Yeah, so it's up there now. There's not much on there. There's like so the Hip Hop Tribune is a section of our website that I actually want to pilot this idea that I have, and it's only a pilot now because I'm not sure how successful it is or if anybody's really looking for something like this. But I thought I'd offer it out to people and just see what the responses I get for it. And if it's something that people really like, we'll continue doing it. If it's not, then we'll fizzle it out.
Yeah.
Essentially, we decided that much in the way of like a medium.com or like the Players Tribune, where people go on like this website to sort of like write a blog about something that they have on their mind that they want to get off their chest.
Yeah.
We want to dedicate a section of the Grindhouse website for just that. So as opposed to like a Players Tribune or something like a medium.com where everybody can sort of like jump in and sort of like write a blog about something they feel like, I want the Hip Hop Tribune section of the Grindhouse website to be dedicated to artists who just have a need to get something off their chest. It could be maybe they got new music coming on the way and they want people to hear about it, and they have like a whole blog written out about like what this album is going to be like. It could be just like observational things that you see within the music scene, or something that you want to say about like just the art of being a rapper or a singer or something. Whatever it is, whatever you want to get off your chest, we are giving you the platform to be able to do that through our Grindhouse website in our Hip Hop Tribune section. And so that section is essentially dedicated to artists who feel like outside of their music want to write something for their fans to consume. So it'll essentially be like a blog session on our website written by artists themselves, as opposed to a blogger writing about these artists. I want the artists to actually write what they feel, and it's different because we're used to blogs where this blogger is covering an artist, but I don't think we're used to blogs where the artists are the ones writing the blogs. And so that's what we want to do with this idea is we want the artists to write the blogs and get like, we want the audience, whoever's reading, to get a deeper insight into that audience. I'll be editing the blogs and curating them. So when it comes to wanting to get your blog on our website, hit me up, Edwin at grindhouserecordings.com, and I'll help you out with that. I'll also be curating them and editing them. So if like spelling is not your best thing, or grammar is not your best thing, whatever, I absolutely encourage you to write it anyway, and then I'll help you put it in the proper format. We'll slap a picture on it and make sure there's like a good picture to go along with whatever the theme of your blog is. And just have it open for people to consume. I feel like it's a new idea. I don't often hear about rappers and other artists kind of like having writing about whatever they feel through a blog, but I feel like it could be interesting. So we're piloting this now. If it works, we're going to stick with it, and hopefully this could be another thing that helps artists kind of put themselves out there. But if nobody's interested, then it'll just be something that we slowly phase out. But the offer's out there. If you're interested, Edwin at grindhouserecordings.com, hit me up and we'll make it happen.
Word. I'm excited. I hope people want to do it. I think it's a really cool idea. So
I do too. And I do think that like, the fact that I look at what the Players Tribune does. I mean, I didn't know that I needed to hear from athletes, in a blog sense until the Players Tribune, and how popular that is. I don't see why we can't do that with music. I want to hear what the artists are thinking. I want to know what they want to get off their chest, So, here's an opportunity for that.
Yeah, definitely. You get to kind of get their perspective as an artist. Mm-hmm. I feel like a lot of times in blogs or even articles, you're getting a journalist's approach or perspective. Yeah. So yeah, it'll be cool to see what artists have to say about their own music or music that they like or whatever.
Cool. All right. What's the next topic?
I think that's it. I think we covered everything.
Did we cover everything? Felt like a quick little bite here.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we covered everything, everyone. That's it for this week. This is the Grindhouse Podcast, episode 47. Thank you so much if you stuck around, if you listened to what we had to say. If you fuck with us, if you support what we do, make sure you subscribe to us. Subscribe to our YouTube channels, like, share this episode out and other episodes we have. We have another guest coming to you next week that we'll reveal once the podcast is up. But just stay tuned for another guest that we're going to have on the podcast next week. As for this week, thank you guys for sticking around with us for the sidebars.
Peace.